Okay, so here we are at the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club with my good old buddy, Dr. Dave Hepburn. And yeah, we're on our, I think, 7th question here. And so we're switching to suppositories and its use in fighting various issues. And I'll just start with a story because it's interesting sometimes how the science isn't necessarily in stream with what we have seen and experienced. And one of the more well-known stories in Victoria is my dear friend Corey Ellen, who joined our club and she had anal cancer, and that's not what it's called, is it?
Rectal
Cancer.
Yeah.
And she was obviously scared for her life, and this was before suppositories were available anywhere, or people even considered that. And she didn't want to get high, but she made her own suppositories, bought the cannabis from us, and cured herself of that rectal cancer doing nothing but. And so she's become a very strong advocate and helped, really probably thousands of people now in the use of this medicine since. But you were saying earlier about the use of suppositories, maybe not being as understood or potentially even as beneficial as we would hope for. So.
We don't know that yet. I mean, when you talk about different delivery mechanisms for cannabis, suppository is one that is going to be medical because it's just not that popular in parties. So what happens is it is typically used by the medical community, and particularly in Europe, where it's a very common mode of delivery mechanism. But I have heard stories from many who talked about the benefits of suppositories for this, either a localized problem, either in the colon or prostate area, or even a more systemic one, because when a suppository is absorbed, when the active ingredients are absorbed, some of it goes into the portal system, which goes to the liver and goes through that first pass metabolism. Other goes straight into the bloodstream. So one is the same as if you ingested it, and 2/3 of it is as if you inhaled it. So one goes into the bloodstream, part of it, and part of it goes into the liver. You're looking for certain levels of drugs, and I haven't seen a lot of successful studies on the levels that you get, but you hear a lot of successful stories of people who've taken it and benefited from it, not just for the problems associated locally, but it could be a problem with insomnia or migraine, not migraines, but I mean, bad choice, but it could be a problem with chronic pain or other issues that they're taking it for, where they've had benefit through that delivery mechanism. And again, it's so dependent on the vehicle, on the condition, all different things that will determine how well they're going to be. I would love to see more research in this field. Well, absolutely.
And I would too. I have a very personal story about this in terms of my caring for Gail, in that at one point she was in the hospital with a broken back, and her bones had cancer all through them, and she was dying in the hospital and wasn't able to eat anything, so we couldn't even get a cannabis capsule into her. And we were able to get a suppository day 4 into being into the hospital with no food and in a lot of distress. And soon after getting a suppository into her, she was able to calm down well enough to start eating a single grape at a time. Yeah. And that helped us get medicine into her and turn her around. And she used suppositories to the end of her life from that point. And so it's interesting to hear that the science might not necessarily understand how that works, but having seen it with my very own eyes in a very acute palliative care situation where nothing else in the hospital was working, was really quite.
And you're absolutely right, and I'm sure we're going to hear more and more of these. It's not that the science, it just hasn't been enough science done on it. It just hasn't been the research done on it that we would all love to see to show how it works. But for sure, stories like that are coming out, and you can't ignore case histories. I mean, it's the anecdotes, the case histories are all part of research. And as we get more research in, as we get more collection of crowdsourcing and other uses of benefits, we will continue. That is also good research, and we can use that for sure.
Okay.
So I work as a bud tender, and I was most surprised by the benefits of suppositories as I've been selling them to lots of patients. I personally had some experience with cysts on my ovaries, and so I use suppositories vaginally. So I know a lot of what we've been talking about has been rectal use, but I'm wondering if you know any information about cannabis and obstetrician and use or gynecological use, and if you had any information there.
Yeah, not beyond anecdotal information at this
Right.
stage of the game, but again, there's a large collection of anecdotes that are happening, case histories. And yeah, so again, these delivery mechanisms are shown to be effective for some conditions in some ways. The interesting question is, would the ovarian cyst also be dealt with if you took it orally? It could, you never know. So this delivery mechanism is one thing for sure that does play a role, but also is the actual cannabinoid working no matter how you use it? So it could work in different ways, which is exciting that you have different options. Because as you mentioned, you know, if you have nausea and vomiting, you don't want to take anything by mouth.
Right.
You know, that sort of thing. You want a different mechanism, be it in inhalation or suppository or whatever, topical, but topicals don't get absorbed, so it doesn't matter. So anyway, yeah, that's the crux, is the delivery mechanism as well as the action of the material.
Okay, well, I think we're good on that one, so.
I have a question about topicals. You said that that topicals do not get absorbed. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure, so cannabis is lipophilic, means it penetrates, there's 3 layers of the skin, the stratum corneum, the epidermis, and dermis, and it is impenetrable beyond that. So it goes into the skin very effectively. And it goes a nice 8 millimeters into areas of joints and things like that. But people are concerned that if you rub it on here, you're going to get high. And you can't, because it's not rubbed, it doesn't get absorbed into the bloodstream because it's lipophilic. Now they're devising techniques, they want to try to get cannabis into the bloodstream by topicals. That would be great if they could do it. And they're trying with different sorts of water-based, alcohol-based, water-based patches, different things. They're experimenting with nanosomes and different things to try and force it in through that dermal barrier where it doesn't get absorbed. So again, people will sometimes take a topical, somebody who's very naive, say, and older, they'll take it and they go, oh, and they'll put it on here, see what happens, and then they feel like they're getting stoned, but it's psychosomatic. It's completely psychosomatic, and we've had to reassure people.
So it doesn't even get into the muscles then?
Oh yeah, it can get in through the into
We're at 2 minutes.
various layers. It can penetrate various layers. It doesn't get into the muscles directly through the skin. No, it has to penetrate that last layer, and it's lipophilic, and it won't. It just won't. Cannabis doesn't. It can help muscles, but it won't get into the muscles. Yeah, that makes sense. Probably doesn't.
No, but maybe one day it will. So,
Yeah, maybe one day.
again, oh,
I have
no
a question. Back to the suppositories. Do you know if there's any benefit to CBD in suppositories as well as THC, or has there only been research on THC so far?
Again, it would be. You're right. Molecule is one thing. So there's lots of research on CBD. Delivery mechanism is simply the delivery mechanism. And CBD, it's a myth that people have this common myth. CBD, non-psychoactive, oil, medical, good. THC, psychoactive, smoked, recreational, bad. That's a common myth. So again, it doesn't matter if it's oil, inhaled, suppository. If it's CBD is going to work, that's just another delivery mechanism for it to work. Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you again very much.
Thank you, Ted.
for coming.
All right.